Words of wisdom from the Mongol Kingdom. Burn in your ships. First, I'd like to give acknowledgements to the Almighty Paitor for allowing me to speak on behalf of his empire today. I'd also like to give a mention to our Waikato seniors, those who have stood by our Bulldog for a long time, that sit at the table with him to help write the red print in which we follow today. And to the Mongol Kingdom, Hati 13th. You know, expanding the kingdom into Australia, I don't think we've truly believed that we could have achieved what we've achieved thus far today. You know, there was a time in 2015, J-Rock and I were sitting in on a range in the southeast Queensland corner of Australia called Mullaney, and looking at each other with our kurawais on and sitting and thinking, what next? You know, both of us hadn't been brought up around the Mongol mob. We're both Australian born. But one thing we did understand, which leads me into my next 2 points, is we knew our dog walk required faith, and we knew that it required us knowing our identity. So faith. Faith in the Bible says in Hebrews, faith shows the reality of things hoped for. It is the evidence of things we cannot see. Paitor writes in his 3rd book, Turn of the Tide, there comes a time in your life when you have to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. What this meant for J-Rock and I was knowing and understanding about hopping on the bus. Before we took any steps on our dog walk, we had faith. We had faith in the direction Paitor wanted to go. We had faith in the direction he wanted to take the Mongol mob, but we also had not seen any evidence of things foreseen. But we believed in the new path Paitor had charted for his waka, written in the first 6 books of his words of wisdom. And I've realised that when I go around and ask people about this, new members, do they understand where the Bulldog's going? Not many people have read the first 6 books, which is pretty much the Bulldog's mission statement on where we're going. The first book is the introduction. The second, your journey to greatness. The third, turn of the tide. Fourth, fighting for our rangatahi, our young people. Fifth, our manawahine, our ladies, our women, our powerful Indigenous women. And sixth, the end of a new beginning, the mission statement. How to get on the bus. There are 2 things we need to know in order for us to get on the bus with our leader, our general, our captain, our Paitor. And that is, what's Paitor's something? And what is your something? Paitor writes in the first book of wisdom, the introduction, about getting on the bus. That we are going to be proactive about getting out there, empowering our people, finding education, seeking employment, and then eventually moving on to create employment. Also in his introduction, Paitor explains how he felt like we were stuck at the bus stop for many years. So how did we move, or how did Paitor move from being at the bus stop to hopping on the bus? He writes that it's up to us to realise our own vision, dreams and aspirations. And that's what happened. In order for you to know what bus to get on, you need to realise your own dreams, visions and aspirations. So what is your something? For me, my something, it was hard to come by as well. I grew up like most cultural kids. I grew up from a broken home, surrounded by abusive alcoholics. The effects of drugs and alcohol comes the violence, the nastiness that the world has to offer, surrounded by it all. So I too was lost and had to find my something. You know, I was given an opportunity when I was 21 to either go get a degree at the Edna Creek Correctional Centre or join the army. I had to make a choice, or the state was going to make that choice for me. So I chose the lesser evil and chose to join the army. In that time, I served between 2000 and 2010, served in both war and in peacetime. When I got to the end of my career, I always had a heart to want to go back and help the youth. I wanted to go back and help them get out of the cycle in which I believed I had just done through the Australian Army. I then started working I volunteered my time at the Juvenile Correctional Centre in North Queensland called Cleveland Youth Detention Centre. There I began as a football coach, and then eventually come on as a sports tutor, where I would go in on weekends and just line up some sports from some touch, some soccer, some basketball, just to get them out of their units. I was then offered a position as the program support officer. It enabled me to stay on full time as a sports tutor and play the sports and keep that connection with the young people, but it also allowed me to go into therapeutic programs and delivery of them programs, such as drug and alcohol abuse, cognitive thinking, challenge and offending. Paito writes in the 4th book of wisdom, the survival of our cause lies in the hearts of our young people. Without them in our lives, where will we find a desire to keep searching for a better tomorrow? My passion was to help youth in the community and teach them the skills I'd learned over my years in the army. But because of the red tape created by the Australian government on the First Nations people of this land, it made me feel like I was stuck at the bus stop. There was highly educated people holding keys to gates I needed to get through in order for me to outlive my visions, dreams and aspirations of feeding the hungry, clothing the naked and housing the homeless. For this is what I believe the Australian Army did for me. Why is it important to know you're something? Well, in life we have a lot more valleys than we do mountain peaks. And for cultural people of the land, our actual start towards the journey to this mountain that this white privilege system talks about, it begins at the bottom of the mountain, 13k down the road, turn a left, turn a right, then head another 13k south, and that's where we begin. You see, our journey has to start with faith, believing in something that we cannot see, because we started so far behind the times that by the time this white privilege system gets us through an education system, was saying success to us is that you get an education, you get a degree or you get a trade, you work for the next 50 years and then you get to retire. That's success in the Australian world. For us, that doesn't sit. We can't understand it. Why? Because we can't even understand a financial world. It was only in 1967 that allowed black people to have full citizenship rights in this country. They took them for flora and fauna, plant and animal, to make them full citizen. That's only 52, 53 years ago. So as you can see, very important to know you're something. In the book of Mark it says, and then he told them to go into all the world and preach the good news to everyone. You see, this is the last command that Jesus gives to his disciples, to go to every corner of the world and preach the message. You see, but what I see is a lot of people, when they make it out of the cycle, they don't ever come back and help the hood no more. Something on my heart was to always come back in the hood. I see a lot of people running to the church and saying that they found Jesus and they can't come back no more. When I studied at Hillsong College in 2016, I studied ministry because I was never brought up around a religious family, so I didn't understand it. So I went to study. And John Taylor, who was the head educator at the time, he told me, Eric, it's important to know your beliefs and your truths. Know you're something. Why? Because as a Christian, you should be able to walk into a Muslim temple, into a Buddhist temple, and go to India and view their 100 gods. You should be able to sit down with a Jehovah's Witness or a Mormon, build a relationship, and still walk away knowing who you are, what your truths, your beliefs, your something is. I see a lot of people running to the church now and they're giving up on their brothers. Then who's going to come back and shed the light? I had enough strength and willpower in me to be, I could help this fucker. I could help this journey and bring light to the darkness. Who would have thought that following a leader that believes in biblical teachings and applying them to a materialistic world could cause so much confrontation? You see, since following Paito and helping him lead this boat here in Australia, we have faced so many obstacles. The first one was the Hmong mob. The first obstacle was the Hmong mob, our own brothers, persecuting our direction and what we believed in as a people. You then have become the other networks that were out there challenging us on our integrity, character and honesty. It took a number of years for them, and it took us being front on with all our work for that to slowly decrease. Then the Australian government, in 2016, the Australian government decided to call us a criminal organisation overnight, in a decision stated by Attorney General Yavat Dath, and as I quote, an organisation with the attributes of an outlaw motorcycle gang and violent initiation processes, Nazi insignia and motto, and members who outside of Queensland have been involved in murder, armed robbery, extortion, home invasion, firearms and drug offences. This statement, like countless other statements, are based on crimes committed in another country when I was 3 years old. The event she is referring to happened in 1986 in New Zealand, not Australia. So I got classed as a criminal with no convictions or records based on other people's crimes in another country. Even today, this talk that I'm doing now, I was meant to do in Hamilton, New Zealand, tomorrow. I got stopped at the gates because New Zealand immigration said I cannot come any further because I am classed as an outlaw criminal. So I cannot, my bloodline whakapapas into the country, but I'm not allowed in there because the Australian government have oppressed me. And then we have the Queensland Police Force, raiding our homes, ruining our cars and vehicle searches that we use to get to work, abusing our families, arresting our brothers with their children, and even holding our children in cells as young as 5. That is fact, that's not lie. They have even tried to persuade our partners to leave our sides because they believe that their lives would be easier without us in them. This is the Australian government. And probably the most disappointing of all is the church has now closed their doors to us because we are listed as a criminal outlaw. You see, when I did my ministry, there was another brother from another network that just come up from Sydney, and he was front on about everything, told them his past, he'd given his heart to Jesus and all the rest of it, and then he got denied entry into the course because of his past. So I lied about mine. I lied about my direction because I wanted to finish that course. Disgusting. Who are the Australian government, the Australian police force, and the Australian Catholic Church to point their fingers at anyone? After 230 years of genocide, persecution, dispossession of land, slavery and oppression on the First Nations people, that they still deny today. Just of late, the highest leader of the Australian Catholic Church was charged and found guilty of the most vile of crimes against young people. All the while, 2 of Australia's recent Prime Ministers, that's the highest leaders in Australia, Prime Ministers, supported his cause and provided reference of good character on his behalf as he was escorted and protected by the Australian Police Force. Who are they to cast the first stone? You know, Paitor writes in Fighting for Our Young People, sometimes someone has to stand long enough in the storm to see the calmness. In the Bible it says in Matthew, God blesses those who are persecuted for doing what is right, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. You see, without faith in yourself and belief in who you are, the 3 highest powers in this country can stop you from achieving not only your own vision, dreams and aspiration, but also those of who we follow, Paitors. So it's important to have faith. But with faith has to come identity. You have to know who you are. In Corinthians it says, this means that any man who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone and the new life has begun. So this is the white man's belief. They brought this book to us, but they don't stand by it themselves. Paitor writes in The Turn of the Table, stand up with praise as a man or a woman and say, I'm going to be defined by what's in front of me, not what's behind me. So who are you? For Paitor, he believes we are members of national greatness. Members of national greatness reaching for equality living, equal living. Never above you, never below you, always beside you. But the way that the education and the white man's system wants us to believe that success in life is having a bigger house than your neighbour, is having a more shiny car than your neighbour. Where with cultural people, we are one, and that's dangerous. We are members of natural greatness reaching for equality living by maintaining our benevolence. Our benevolence. Who we are as a people. Our values, our morals, and our beliefs. Paitor talks in his book, The End of a New Beginning, about working collectively as a group, collectively together as a group, as opposed to the old regime of individualism and each to their own mentality. For me, this was easy coming from the military. You know, the military, it relies on working collectively as a group, particularly in wartime. You know, it doesn't matter how pretty you can practice your section attacks, it doesn't matter how educated you can be, it can all go to shit if you don't watch and work collectively as a team. It takes teamwork. John C. Maxwell writes in the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, the greatest leaders are the greatest followers. A man, a leader that is walking alone is nothing more than a man taking a walk. I didn't always know who I was. My journey of knowing who I am today took 30 years to figure out what my true identity is. I am a Māori-born Aussie with a father by Māori by full blood. My mother's a white Australian by full blood. I was born in New South Wales, raised in Queensland, culturally adopted to a Torres Strait Islander family in Rockhampton, raised in an Aboriginal community, and I now have children with my partner who's South Sea Islander Aboriginal. I had no idea who I was and what I identified as. I didn't come to the Manga Mob looking for a lifestyle. I was doing fine in the white man's eyes. I had built my own house, had a full-time job, had a four-wheel drive, a 5.5 metre boat, I had 2 bulldogs, paid my taxes, and hadn't been in trouble with the law since I joined the military. But what I didn't have was a brotherhood. A brotherhood who wanted to reach for equality living. You see, Python writes in the end of The New Beginning that if we have a clear idea of what we want, then we know what bus to hop on. So who are you following? Or are you still an individual with the mentality each to their own? At the start, who was I to think I could represent the Manga Mob? I was no one. I was an individual trying to do it my own way. You see, to follow Python, it's easy because I believe in his vision. I took the pressure off myself, not thinking I had to represent the Manga Mob as a whole, because in the Manga Mob there's so many different chiefs, there's so many different iwis, and they all believe in their own dreams, visions and aspirations. So I couldn't represent the whole, but I could represent Python. But more importantly, I knew exactly who I was as a person. I knew my morals, I knew my values, and I knew that my beliefs matched those of our Bulldogs. So who am I? I'm a Christian man. I'm a partner. I am the partner to Jemison Logan Power. I'm a father to Hinga Kiato Waimana, to Wahine Moana, and to Tai Moody Pere. And I am a mobster under the almighty Python. You see, I can serve a man who believes in biblical principles, that we are spiritual people in a material world waiting to return to the spiritual realm. I don't care for money, I don't care for material possessions, but what I do desire the most is what I went to Afghanistan for, and that is for freedom for our people. The Bible says in the book of Matthew, wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will also be. So what do you want? What is it that you want to achieve? You see, it's easier to fight for things that you can see than it is to fight for an idea. To me, if you were to be part of the kingdom, you have to really be able to hop on the bus, and to do that, you have to know who you are and what is your something. Then you have to be able to have faith in our leader, have faith in our Bulldog, and in his vision, who you were following. So then you marry the two relationships. Okay, so what is Python something? Who is he? The first 6 books of the Words of Wisdom is your first destination to gain an understanding of where our mighty is heading, where he's navigating his empire, but his destination to his journey of greatness. It is written in his last book, The End of a New Beginning, the mission statement. And it writes, Python has an idea he knows people will laugh at, look at him like he was foolish and crazy, and that idea was that he could build a united Manga Mob kingdom. Arrgh. I want to conclude with a story, and this story is about a Spanish explorer named Hernando Cortez. On April the 21st in the year of 1519, the Spanish explorer Hernando Cortez sailed into the harbour of Veracruz, Mexico. He brought with him only 600 men, 500 sailors and 500 infantry and 100 sailors. Over the next 2 years, his vastly outnumbered forces were able to defeat Montezuma and all the warriors of the Aztec Empire. He faced great odds of 10,000 Aztec warriors, making Cortez the conqueror of all of Mexico. How was this incredible feat accomplished? When 2 prior expeditions had failed to establish a colony on Mexico soil. Here's the secret. Cortez knew that he and his men faced incredible odds. He knew that the road before them would be dangerous and difficult. He knew that his men would be tempted to abandon their quest and return to Spain. As soon as Cortez and his men had come ashore and unloaded their provisions, he ordered the entire fleet of 11 ships destroyed and burned. His men stood on the shore and watched as their only possibility of retreat burnt and sank from the point on. From that point on, they knew there was no return, there was no surrender, there was no running away. No turning back. Nothing lay behind them but an empty ocean. Their only option was to either go forward and conquer or to die. When you jump on the boat or you hop on the bus and you begin your journey with the kingdom, there is only one direction. To conquer or to die. To conquer your journey to greatness. But before you do that, you have to burn your ships. And your ship might be domestic violence. It could be the abuse of alcohol. It could be your anger. It could be your selfishness, your jealousy, You're still in the mentality of individualism or each to their own. Whatever it is, we all have a bad habit that is stopping us from moving to the next level in life. That bad habit's always the one so hard to break, the one that we deny that we don't need to break because we can do all right while we're still doing it. That is the ship that you need to burn for you to move on to your journey of greatness. These are the words of wisdom from the Mongol Kingdom. Hurrah.